Natasha, we're broadcasting now? Okay, great. Great. Well, thanks everyone for making it here so promptly. This is our Transportation Committee meeting for Community Board 7. I'm Katie Walsh, I'm the chair, and John DeLuper is vice chair, and Natasha from the district office. So we have 3 agenda items. I see we have several representatives, which is great from the different presentations. So when they go up, if they want to introduce themselves and anyone else who's here, we'd welcome that. So the first one is a presentation from the MTA about the IBX. Then we'll go to Greenwood Cemetery for the proposal around a greenway. And then a discussion among committee members, public, anyone who's here about the plans for the long discussed plan around a greenway, Third Avenue Street improvement plan event that we've been talking about for a couple of months that we are arriving on a date now for May, and we'll talk it through a little bit more. So with that, I will just say that it's possible, committee members, you'll know how this goes. We'll have a presentation. We will then turn to any questions from the board members, the transportation committee members, and then we'll open it up for the public, anyone who's here who wanted to ask a question to the presenters. And then we'll follow that format for both of these. And then the third one, as I mentioned, we'll kind of move into the planning discussion for this event. So without any further waiting, I just have to kind of look at who from the MTA is wonderful. So welcome you up to podium. I don't see a mic up there. Oh, the wireless mics. Okay, so I'll just ask if you're presenting, are they presenting up at the podium or down? Usually up. Okay.
The podium would be great so we can hear better.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, there was a little bit of side chatter about how we were about to start the presentations, but before that, we have to do roll call. So I'll give our MTA folks a quick second, and then we'll move to roll call. Thank you, Natasha.
Okay. This is roll call for the Transportation Committee meeting. Katie Walsh,
Present.
John DeLuper,
Here.
Joan Body, George Cardona, Jerry Chan, Danny DeBear, Gabino Morales, Matthew Florkowitz. Thank you. Jamie Freed. Thank you. Daniel Kaminsky. Roberto A. Martinez. Thank you. Maria Roca. Thank you. Sam Sierra. Faye Walker. Thank you. And Pat Ruiz, I see you attending virtually, but you do not count as quorum. Roll call is done.
Thank you.
Great, and thank you. Thanks, Pat. We have quorum. So, okay, with that, now we will turn over to the first presentation. And with these mics, you just have to keep speaking into them. And if we have issues, then we'll switch and have you guys move to one of those.
Great, thank you. Can everyone hear me well? Okay, great. So good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for having us. My name is Katerina Patori. I'm a member of the MTA Government and Community Relations team. I'm joined by several of my colleagues today that are all a part of the IBX project team. Jordan and Charlie over here, who you'll hear from in a moment. Megan over here, who is this community board's borough representative. And then Allison and Katie, who are part of our IBX team as well. So we're really looking forward to being here. We have a presentation ready for you. We have some time for Q&A. We're very excited to be here to introduce this project. We've been, very excited to come to all the community boards this spring to let you know where we are sort of in the preliminary design of the IBX. And just want to reiterate that this is not the last time you'll see us at the community board. This is the first of many touch points we hope to have with you all through the life of the project. So looking forward to kind of staying in touch with everyone and being back here and seeing you at future upcoming meetings as well. So with that, I'm going to pass things off to Charlie and we will start our presentation.
Right, my name is Charlie Gans. I'm the project executive for the Interborough Express. I work for the MTA. Thank you very much for hosting us tonight. So our agenda for tonight is we'll start with a short project overview, and then we're going to talk about the access to opportunity that we believe Interborough Express will unlock for this community board and for many others. We'll talk through some project updates. There's two major activities that we're doing right now. It's the environmental review and the design work. So those are happening at the same time. We'll get into detail on those. And then we're going to touch on a couple of important topics that have come up in the outreach we've been doing. So next slide, please. So Interborough Express, as we're fond of saying, would provide a transformative new transit connection between Brooklyn and Queens. So it's going to run in an existing rail corridor that's currently used for freight. So the idea is we are going to keep the freight running. That'll continue running. We're going to add passenger service to that corridor. So basically, the IBX will be 2 tracks, passenger tracks, which will be operating adjacent to the freight, all in the same corridor. So the southern portion of the, is there any way to get rid of the, so we can show the map? Maybe not. Well, most of the southern portion you can actually see, so I'll keep going. So the southern portion of the corridor is owned by Long Island Railroads. That's 11 miles. It's the majority of the corridor. The corridor is 14 miles. The northern 3 miles is owned by CSX. Next slide. So 18 stations are planned for IBX, and they're going to connect to the 17 subway lines, 50 bus routes, and the Long Island Railroad in 2 locations. So the connections to existing transit services is a huge feature of the project. So again, these slides talk through what we believe are the opportunity that IBX will unlock, but just first for some table setting, of course, we're in Community District 7, which is currently served by 23 different bus routes, 5 different subway lines. And for context, so the Interborough Express will introduce 3 stops. So one at Brooklyn Army Terminal, and these are located in the bottom left of this map. One in Brooklyn Army Terminal, another at 4th Avenue, and then 8th Avenue. So on this slide, this focuses in on the 8th Avenue station for IBX. So in the darker area, what we have is basically how far you can travel right now standing at 8th Avenue within 30 minutes. And then the lighter green area basically shows you the expanded area that you're going to be able to travel to in 30 minutes. So effectively, IBX, when it comes into operation, is going to double the amount of the city that you can reach within 30 minutes. And it, makes neighborhoods accessible. Like here, it shows parts of Lower Manhattan becoming accessible within 30 minutes, financial district, and of course, huge swath of central Brooklyn. Next slide. But more important than geography is really, again, the opportunities. So, within that 30-minute commuting time, that window, right now, there's about 400,000 jobs within 30 minutes of 8th Avenue. Those are existing jobs within 30 minutes. When IBX comes into effect, that number is going to increase to 700,000. So the number of jobs that are going to be accessible from 8th Avenue is going to dramatically increase. And we kind of did the same analysis across a variety of different, factors and, again, sort of areas of opportunity. So healthcare options are going to dramatically increase. The number of colleges are going to go up by 30% that you can reach from 8th Avenue. Same sort of story for daycare, cultural institutions, and then for businesses, the bottom bullet point, the number of working age adults within 30 minutes of 8th Avenue is currently about 800,000. So that's, a company's customer base is about 800,000 people. That's going to almost double. So businesses are going to be able to serve twice as many people as they can right now. So we've done these slides for each of the stations in the community district. We've done them for each of the stations in the whole project. And we'll kind of go through the other 2 stations quickly because the story is pretty similar. Here, 4th Avenue, again, IBX will double the amount of the city that you can reach. And then pretty similar statistics in terms of jobs, healthcare facilities, et cetera. And then Brooklyn Army Terminal, and we can return to these in detail in the Q&A, and we'll also make this available to the community district, the community board, so that they can make it, they can post it online. But Brooklyn Army Terminal Station, very similar story, doubles the amount of land area accessible. And in this example, the number of jobs jumps even higher. Okay, so with that, I'm going to turn it to my colleague, Jordan Smith.
All right, thanks, Charlie. Hi, Jordan Smith with the project team here at MTA. I'll go through some kind of project updates, what we're looking at both in terms of environmental review and design. Actually, Charlie. All right, perfect. So I'll start with environmental review. Charlie mentioned kind of two parallel tracks that we're on now with the project. In terms of the environmental review process, so we are in it right now. We're doing a state environmental review procedure. So this is affectionately called SECRA. So basically what that means is we're doing our analysis now, preparing that environmental impact statement. We had held a number of scoping meetings last fall, and a scoping meeting is basically our opportunity to go out to the public, say, this is what we're looking at for the environmental review document, and then soliciting their feedback. Are we doing it right? Do you have some comments for us? So we take all those comments back. We got about 500 or so. That was 2 in-person meetings and then 2 virtual meetings. So we got great feedback. We take it back, we review the comments, and then we issue what's called a final scoping document. And then, of course, a draft environmental impact statement, which is coming up later this year. One of the things that we hear a lot is about property acquisition. One of the good parts of this project, as Charlie kind of mentioned earlier, is that it exists within an existing rail corridor. So, already we're starting from a great place. If we're building a 14-mile train that doesn't exist today in a rail corridor, property acquisition would be massive. The good news is we're starting from a place where we'll need minimal. This is something we take very seriously at the MTA. We're obviously looking to minimize any property acquisition to the extent possible. It's a non-zero number, but it's a small number. So aside from minimizing it the best we can, we're obviously minimizing residential property acquisitions. And this is something that we'll be continuing to study as part of our design process. And we'll have more information coming out later this year as part of the draft environmental impact statement. So that's kind of the environmental review side of things. I'll talk a little bit about project design, which is that separate track that we're on, both environmental review and design. So we're really looking at the project design as a 3-part or 3 kind of different work streams. Everything we've done so far has been conceptual. So, we've been working on desktop maps and looking at, aerial views of the project, and we're really going from big picture down to small picture. So how are we doing that? The first step is what we're calling due diligence. Basically, this means we're out collecting data. We've got boots on the ground with hard hats and vests, surveying, measuring, inspecting. So there will be people, in fact, there already have been people in the corridor in this area, in this district, just kind of getting that information. So once we get all that, we call it as-built or due diligence information, that feeds into the civil design. And civil design is really what you think about when you think of a transportation project. So it's track, it's bridges, it's structures, it's all the heavy kind of civil work. And then what we do after that is we look at the system design, or we're calling kind of the smart part of the project. It's how the trains talk to each other. It's the signaling, communications. What do the stations look like? How does the train is powered electrically? So all that kind of smart system design. So these are really the 3 phases of work. There's a lot of overlap. It's not like we finish one and go to the next. And we'll talk a little more in a future slide about how those are sequenced. This just to give you kind of a snapshot on how the first phase is going. We're about halfway done in Brooklyn. The way we see the project corridor is really from a data collection is going south to north. So 14 miles is a long distance to cover, but we're about halfway there. And one of the things we've been doing is we've been flyering, some of the corridor. If we're going to be putting crews, surveyors out in the area, we want the people to know. So we've been flyering, handing out information to the community just so they're aware of what's going on. So I mentioned stations and station design, kind of urban realm. What are the stations going to look like? You know, we're building 18 new stations, which is a pretty big lift. So one of the things we'll be doing this spring is we'll be hosting a number of public workshops. So we want to hear from the community. You know, we want to know what their thoughts are on some of the kind of important bullets we list here: safety, wayfinding, lighting, really what the passenger experience is like. So, you know, how do people move through the system? How are they going to transfer from IBX to the N train, for example? So we'll have more information soon about those workshops, and we're really looking forward to these and getting a lot of public feedback. Okay, community focus area. This is really kind of to talk about a couple other hot topics we hear when we do these meetings with the community boards, as well as open houses and workshops. A couple different themes have emerged. I mentioned property acquisition. We're very much you know, listening to those comments, and a couple more here. One of those is stormwater management. So you can see on the graphic here, this is MTA tracks, pretty close to here actually, 65th Street Yard. So the corridor is below street level, which means, as you all know, water goes down. As you can see in the picture, tends to flood. So as part of the project, you know, this is a generational MTA investment. We want to make sure we're doing it right. So we don't want service disrupted due to flooding. So, you know, we're working very closely with our partners in the city, specifically with Department of Environmental Protection, to develop a system for stormwater management that doesn't take water off our property and put it onto someone else's. So this is really our goal, is to create a holistic system that blends within the city's existing infrastructure. So working very closely with DEP to accomplish that. Kind of similarly, another pattern that we've heard, kind of a common theme from the community, is about the electrical grid. So the good news is IBX will be electrically powered. And we've worked very early with Con Edison, with our partners there, to make sure that, you know, the power needs for the project won't detract from the power needs of the community. So this is a very important point for us. You know, we started working with Con Edison very early in the project to make sure that we're aligned on what this could look like. Because the last thing we want to do is, you know, pull all the power from a neighborhood and cause, you know, blackouts to the community. So certainly something we've got our eyes on. As part of the design process, you know, we're looking for ways to make sure that does not happen. Which is kind of bringing us to next steps. So I mentioned the public outreach. You know, we've got a couple community touch points. Obviously, we're here, we're doing other community boards, but we'll be hosting these workshops coming up this spring. I think we started advertising those this afternoon. So more information is available on our website, mta.info/IBX. You can check out all the dates. We've got 6 of them coming up in Brooklyn and Queens. So we'd love it if any or all of you could come to those. So we also will be hosting a public hearing as part of our draft environmental impact statement. That's coming out later this year. Don't have a date for that yet, but more information soon. And with that, we can flip to the last slide, which is really just kind of next steps. Where are we? So I mentioned kind of the sequencing for the design phase and how these all kind of fit together. And we are currently in spring of 26, which means, as you can see, both the due diligence, civil design, as well as the system design are all happening now. So everything is on track to take us through the design phase, which will go through next year. And then, of course, environmental review. But I think an important point here to mention is the last line on this next step slide, which is outreach. This is something that's important to us. We want to keep doing it. We're here now. We're going to keep coming out. Like Katerina said, you know, it won't be the last time you hear from us. So excited to be here. And I think that's the last slide. And so with that, we'll take any questions.
Great. So I'll start out, and just a reminder, just in terms of process, we'll take a couple questions from board members, board members, transportation committee members, and then we'll open it up to the public. And I'll sort of start out too and give deference in the room for a couple of these, and then go virtual when Natasha comes back. And I guess I'll just start out with a question and then go to John. With your, okay, first off, it's just I'm trying to find on the website. Could you let us know where do we find the upcoming workshops? Where are they listed?
Yeah, and they might not be online today yet. They
Okay.
might have just sent the email out. They should be online tomorrow. But once we have those up, we'll make sure that we send a notice to the board, and we'll also drop off some physical flyers with the dates listed that anyone can pick up. We'll also be flyering so that anyone who might not be at this meeting can know when those dates are coming up.
Okay, so I'll just start out with sort of the public, I see Community Board 7 is listed as part of your public engagement strategy. Will those workshops be hosted in multiple languages? And in particular, when you mentioned doing flyering and outreach already, have you already started to do that in our community? And are you doing those in multiple languages?
Question. Oh, very great question.
Yeah.
So the flyering that has already been occurring in this district is primarily related to the geotech activities. So that is the survey work that Jordan was describing a little bit earlier. Those flyers are bilingual, English and Spanish. I believe you can access them in more languages online. But that flyering has been well underway so that everybody near any survey activity work knows what's going on. Flyering for the public workshops hasn't begun yet. That will begin this week, I believe later this week, and then it will kind of continue on a rolling basis ahead of each workshop date. So we have, as Jordan mentioned, 6 total that are starting at the end of this month. They're continuing through spring. So there will be a flyering effort sort of before each one in the kind of immediate neighborhoods. Those flyering efforts happen in all Title VI languages. So we really want to make sure that we're kind of meeting people where they are and also getting kind of a wide array of feedback on the project, as wide as the ridership that will use the project. So we really kind of want to lean on the board to help us get the word out. But like I said, we will kind of be flyering in the interim along the right of way to make sure everybody knows about the dates.
Okay, I'll just stress for 8th Avenue, making sure that you have people who are handing out flyers and also able to speak, especially in Cantonese, Mandarin. Obviously, there's additional dialects, but I would say those in particular. Also, at 4th Avenue would be helpful and in Spanish. So just really stressing the importance of that engagement. And then the other question that comes from me specifically before I pass to John and open up is around, we did provide comments to the, was it the environmental impact statement that you were collecting feedback for by December. We weren't able to have a board meeting on it, but we sent a lot of additional feedback. And I just want to make sure you guys got that because Community Board 7 compiled our some of our responses that we were able to pull from different committee members.
We did, and I'll double check to make sure we have that, and if not, I'll certainly let you know.
Okay, that's great. All right, John, if you want to.
All right, thank you for the presentation and for the updates. I had a couple quick follow-ups on some of your slides. The first one is you talked about increasing accessibility to Battery Park City and the financial district, and you had a picture showing that, but I was unclear how that happens, being that this train is only in Brooklyn and Queens.
Transfers. So it increases the transfer opportunity. And it's a great point because what we've seen in our ridership modeling is that 72% of all IBX riders are transfer riders. One of the great strengths of the project is how it kind of connects to the subway.
Cool. And then the next thing is, you talked about the accessibility. I just wanted, and I know you're doing workshops coming up, but I wanted to confirm that those stations, the proposed stations, are planned to be wheelchair and stroller accessible. Is that right?
Yes, that is correct. We are required by law to do that, but we're looking to exceed the requirements.
Okay, cool. And then the last thing I wanted to mention was that we've had a problem with, on the rail corridor where you're working with, the existing freight railroad not doing a good job of maintaining conditions related to illegal dumping and trash along the tracks. Given that the MTA is going to be running train service on there, will there be additional work to remove that trash to help maintain that corridor? How is that going to work under the new system?
So the short answer is yes. So as part of the project, Interborough Express, we're going to improve all the security and the fencing around the corridor to prevent dumping and prevent trespassing. Given that we're going to be operating trains at such a high frequency, that we will have to keep it in much tighter shape than it is right now. We acknowledge that there's trash issues that they are out there trying to resolve, but there's a lot of them, and they're chipping away at it. But it's a big corridor.
Thank you.
Go to the room. Do we have one mic that's still roving? I can't tell. Maybe just, yeah, if you can give one to Joan. And then I see a couple other hands from board members. Thanks.
I want you to please make sure that the electrical grid is up and running fault-free before the actual line begins. With more and more electrical appliances and electrical cars coming, we're having a problem in the area. Thank you.
I'll
Joan, if
say-
you could give it to Faye behind you, I'm just going to kind of do it by proximity. And
Yeah, two questions. One is just since the track already exists, what are the kinds of properties that you would have to acquire? So are they things like adjoining properties for stations or just, I know you're still finalizing the actual plan, but just like a sense of the kinds?
It's hard to say now, and that's, the honest truth, because we're doing the surveys, the information gathering to know. What I can tell you is there's a lot of slivers. So there's no, it's not like the corridor is 100 feet wide for the entire stretch. So we're learning more by the day. We want to make sure we get it right. So obviously minimizing anything is our top priority. We'll have more information soon on that.
And then will it be using upgraded signaling?
One of the things that is a benefit to a light rail system is that it's completely modern. So, the subway is 100-year-old technology, and we're slowly bringing it up to semi-modern standards with CBTC and other signaling systems. This will be a completely modern system with the kind of state-of-the-art technology.
great. Okay. And just to reiterate again, so we're taking some questions in the room, and then I'm going to go virtually. We're starting off with board members in the room, and then those virtually, and then I'll switch to the public. So just wanted to catch everybody up. We have a lot of people online asking questions too, so I just want to be cognizant of that and remind everybody that we still have 2 agenda items after this too. Okay. Jerry and then Maria, and then we'll go.
Okay. So I have a couple questions and then a couple questions after that. But let's start with but follow-up questions.
Get 3.
So you mentioned some of the rail is owned by Long Island, and then you mentioned about CRX. What's
CSX. CSX is just a private freight railroad that owns the northern 3 miles of the corridor.
So going back to, I think, right, so it won't be private, owned by MTA. It'll be you leasing it from.
So we're working that out now with CSX. It's something that it's another project element that we're working through at the moment.
Okay, so I'm going to start my question. So where is the budget coming from?
So we have significant funding in the MTA's capital plan. So that's the current capital plan, which is a 5-year cycle. So we've got a significant slice of money in the current plan.
So we don't rely on a federal government. If the fund middle of it runs out, right, that means the project is not going to stop. 2 is that it's not going to increase ridership fare to fund this program.
No, so the way it works is, as a mega project by the MTA, these typically span multiple capital plans. So the current plan is 2025 to 2029, which has half of the project budget in this one. The idea is the remaining funds would come through the next capital plan, because certainly we're not going to start and finish construction in this plan. The other thing I'll say is just that it would not be smart for us to start construction if we have no plan to finish it. So obviously, when we start is dependent on what funds are available.
I have example with Second Avenue. Okay, you started the project. It's
Understood.
still the swing. It's okay.
We're aware of that project.
Yeah. Okay. I'll keep my question.
So good evening, everyone. So I'm going to put my questions out there and whoever takes them. The first question is about languages beyond Spanish and English. And I maybe not just a question, but a suggestion that certainly Mandarin and Cantonese, because of, in this area. But there's also Arabic. We have a meaningful, sizable out of a community that grows every day within walking distance of the 4th Avenue and 8th Avenue stations. And staying with the language, well, and also interpretation as well as translation, and good and strong, because I hear, and that's the next question, property owners, even a block away, are very concerned. But the ones adjacent to the tracks, from what I hear, they have not been contacted. They are not being told. They're afraid of that when work starts, maybe the land will give. They are like they're people who are literally across the street. And they claim that they have not received comforting news or reassurance that, or some kind of information that, yes, there might be, but it's the engineers are on it. Nothing. It's like, as far as they're concerned, and I don't know if it's true or not, I'm just voicing their concern, that is crickets, And so there are many people, not just one or two people. I personally, and I didn't know, how did these people know that they didn't know about this meeting tonight, many of them, the elderly, some of them, and they don't like to come out after 6 o'clock. It is what it is. Or there is an issue in this community, like many, with access to the internet.
So Maria, is your question, just to be able to put a point on it so that we can ask
Yeah.
it, is it that you're asking if the MTA will be going door to door? I just want to be able to get to the
Right,
question.
door to door, don't rely on the internet, written and oral, interpretation and translation.
So can I jump in and ask, is that something you all are looking at, the MTA, in terms of flyering a particular block specifically?
We can certainly look at that. I think,
Okay.
our goal is to drive turnout to the extent possible. We want everyone to know about the project and to come out, so we're certainly willing to entertain that.
Okay, that's great. So I
Can I have one
more, yeah, and then I'll go virtually, yeah.
You were speaking of ensuring that the power use that the grid can support this and there won't be any negative implication. How about solar energy? How much of solar energy are you going to be relying on?
So the MTA gets the majority of our power from NIPA, which has a large percent of sustainability energy sources. So that's where we draw most of our power.
But it's a mix of, but anything that is going on the stations, the station roofs, the signage, and everything that can be supported by solar power. If that's not part of, I assume there's some
Well,
thinking about that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, our design is really just starting, but like I said, we do draw most of our power from the New York Power Authority, which has a lot of solar and other renewable sources as part of it.
So I think if I can also take from that, is there an opportunity during the workshops when you're talking about developing the stations, if people want to say there should be on-site renewable energy generation at these sites? Is that a good example of things that you can consider?
Absolutely.
Okay, so I think it's a good question. Thank you for Maria, and I would again encourage people to go to these workshops in person. And we have a bunch of folks online. If I can go to board members, and then I'll come back to the room in person for anyone from the public.
So far, I don't see no board member online who has questions, but I have a couple attendees.
Okay. So is there anyone in the room, not a board member, since hopefully we captured those questions, who wants to ask something, and then we'll go online. I see a hand in the back. Jerry, do you mind grabbing the mic and bringing it to? Oh, sorry, or Dan. And if you're here, if you could just say your name and just introduce yourself, you can. Thank you.
Alex Mitchell, Sunset Park resident. Just a quick question about manufacturing of the rail cars themselves. Obviously, MTA has a long-standing approach as it relates to subway cars. Understanding that we're very early in this process, do you have any thoughts as it relates to manufacturing for this opportunity?
Yeah, so another benefit of the project is that we're not locked into, the Kawasaki's or the Bombardiers, that serve the New York City subway. So we've done some vehicle manufacturer outreach. There's been a lot of interest in a pretty expanded pool of cars, so car manufacturers. That's just another task as part of the design phase.
Thank you. Okay, so finished in the room and I'll go virtually. Thank you. We were, the wish, the thought was to be able to transition by 7:15, but we might not hit that mark, so, but that was the goal, yeah.
This is Jean-Pierre. If you are still online, you can unmute yourself.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Elizabeth Jean-Pierre, and I'm the Executive Director of UpRose. Really appreciate the opportunity to participate in this way because of my limited mobility. I think a lot of the members of the community board asked questions that we are concerned about. But when you opened, you started to talk about how your energy was being provided by Con Edison, and of course, NYPA considers natural gas renewable energy, and we don't. The question really is, how is the infrastructure powered? Making sure that there's access to renewable energy, and that that's not something that is considered, but is something that is prioritized. We want to know which aspects are carbon neutral, how you're going to be using renewable energy, what parts of the plan incorporate the CLCPA, and beyond stormwater management, what are the safety measures are being incorporated to address extreme weather events? How is the plan aligned with environmental justice concerns? And then the last person who spoke talked about manufacturing. And of course, we've got a community vision called The Grid, which is about taking the industrial waterfront, the SMIA, and turning it into a vehicle for a just transition. So it would be wonderful to explore how we would be able to bring that kind of manufacturing to the industrial waterfront as part of a green manufacturing vision. So we're kind of hoping that these are not things that are just added to the list as an opportunity to hear from the public, but to incorporate that into a vision that manifests the concerns that are right in front of us. And then I guess my last question really has to do with what is your relationship with NYSERDA, and is NYSERDA investing in renewable energy so that this can be sort of a state-of-the-art, state-of-the-art carbon neutral infrastructure?
So I'll start just by saying, the way that we see IBX is as what we call a greenfield opportunity. So I think this gives us it presents a lot of opportunity to look at things a little different. We're not building a new infill subway station. We're not, retrofitting an existing subway station. So these are all great, feedback for us to take back because those decisions have not been made yet. We're still very early on in the design phase. We're eager to hear all this because, like I said, we haven't made those decisions. We have opportunities here and we're looking to make the most of them.
And I can just add, please make sure to come to the workshop. We'd love to get more details on sort of the vision that you're describing and some of the work that's already been happening. So I think we'll make sure to reach out to your org directly as well to make sure that you're participating and are able to give us feedback on those things specifically.
Okay, do we have another hands up, Natasha? Okay, oh, we have a couple. Okay, thanks.
Brendan Berth, if you're still online, you can unmute yourself. Second. Hello, Brendan, you're there? Brendan, we can't hear you.
We can come back if there's another, yeah, and then if they end.
We'll come back to you, Brendan.
Hear me now?
Oh, wait, hold on. Brendan?
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, sorry about that. This is more of a flag rather than a question, but since the MTA briefly alluded to IBX being a company.
Oh, Brendan, so sorry to interrupt you. Could you just let us know if you, your name and if you're in the district? Community Board
Yes,
Seven?
I'm at 62nd and 5th.
Okay, sorry, thank you.
Yeah, all good. So this is more of a flag rather than a question, I guess. But since you all briefly alluded to IBX being accompanied by pedestrian improvements, I hope that improving the pedestrian underpass by the future 4th Avenue station becomes part of that conversation. Like many highway underpasses, I find that underpass to not be particularly inviting or pleasant. So just want to make sure that's on you all's radar.
It is, yes. Thank you for that.
Next, I will call on James Wagman. Please unmute yourself.
James, if you could just let us know also if you're Community Board 7 based.
Yes, hi, James. Community Board 7, yes, Windsor Terrace. I'm just curious where and how the proposed line will connect to the F.
Remind me I should know this, but remind me the station that the F is closest to. We can pull up the maps. It's a long corridor. Okay, so I believe that's about 2 blocks from the IBX. Yeah, we're pulling up the map now.
Thanks.
Yes, thank you. Yes, at McDonald, thank you for that. So as I recall, that's about a 2-block distance between IBX and the F. So this is another kind of typical example of working within an existing freight rail corridor and how we'll connect to the subway. So, it'll be an out of system transfer, but assuming the Omni system, which we are, that it would be just kind of a similar to an in-system transfer. So it's walking the 2 blocks. What exactly that walk looks like is a design question. So we consider this part of an urban realm study. We want to make it, an important, and it's something we're looking at seriously from a pedestrian and customer standpoint. So,
Probably just feedback, don't worry. Thank
Okay.
you.
yeah, so it's just another design question that we're working through. But this is kind of common at most transfers in that it's a walk or 2 away.
Great, thank you.
Any other hands? Okay. Okay.
Hunter Armstrong, you can unmute yourself.
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, hi, Hunter Armstrong with Brooklyn Greenway Initiative. The Greenway is within the district. I am not personally located within the district. I'm just outside the district. So I wanted to point out a few things. So just to note that the IBX corridor will intersect with the Brooklyn Waterfront Greenway, the Sunset Park Greenway at Brooklyn Army Terminal. So really making sure that terminus for the IBX is really kind of integrated for people using the Greenway, since I think that will be a very popular means of access to get to that IBX station. And it also will intersect with Ocean Parkway, which will be upgraded as a greenway. It's a historic greenway, but will be improved over the short term through a process that the city is leading. So a few things I'd like to point out is first, exploring whenever possible when a greenway can be incorporated into the IBX corridor. I think at some locations there may be sufficient width to accommodate that. And then also noting where the IBX corridor will be intersecting with current and future greenways to encourage that mode of transportation to get to the IBX and to disembark from the IBX. So I think that's, greenways are important, as well as the whole kind of you mentioned a minute ago, the public realm design of how people are getting to these stations to really encourage cycling, encourage people on foot, walking, to build a very safe form of infrastructure for people, to encourage people to reach them by bike and by foot, and to have adequate accommodations at stations for people who are using the IBX, reaching it by foot or by bike. I also just assume, and I realize this is not exactly something the MTA would be doing, but I'd like to say it for the record. I assume that there will be rezoning as part of the IBX kind of design, for transit-oriented development that's happened on 2nd Avenue and other places. And so I would want for these accommodations for pedestrians and cyclists and public realm improvements to be incorporated into any future rezoning of the community. And I also look at the Gowanus Canal corridor, which is, of course, on the edge of CB7, and looking at how that area was rezoned and accommodates a public realm and a public esplanade along the corridor. So I think kind of future urban design and urban realm discussion is really important to make sure the buildings around the site are accommodating people on foot and green space. So noting all of those issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Hunter. And there was a lot in there, but I do just want to the word rezoning was said, and I just need to be very explicit. Are you proposing that there'd be rezoning as a result of this? And if you can respond to anything else that Hunter said in his question before we go to the next person.
Sure. To your question, no. The MTA's main priority is providing a transportation service. Any rezoning would be led by the city, Department of City Planning, who is a partner for us in a lot of different aspects of this project, including public realm. If the city chooses to rezone neighborhoods, that's their priority, not ours. We obviously will work with them if they need more information on, what we're thinking from a station standpoint. Where are we putting certain elements? There's a partnership that has to happen for a city to do a rezoning, but that's certainly not something that we take on as part of our project. That's a city effort.
There anything built into the assumptions associated with this that would require or be leaning on some perception of a future rezoning?
No, one of the good things of the project is constructing a station will be very simple within the rail corridor. So we'll have more information on the renderings later, but to answer your question is no.
Okay, thank you. One more question, then we'll wrap up. Thanks.
Ahmed, if you're still online, please unmute yourself.
Yeah, thank you so much for this presentation. My name is Ahmad Perez. I'm the infrastructure coordinator at Uprose on 36th Street. Wanted to echo an earlier question about how the plan for the IBX is aligned with hyperlocal environmental justice concerns along the stops. And then I know the MTA put out the climate resilience roadmap that identified 10 priority locations right throughout the city where action is needed to control stormwater flood impacts. 4th Avenue is one of those spots, right? So how are you all specifically working with DOT and DEP on that as it relates to the IBX? Can you go a bit deeper onto how those conversations have progressed as you all are already in the design phase now, and not only for stormwater management, but also for extreme weather period, right? But thank you for this presentation.
Sure. So just to touch on those briefly. So the hyperlocal equity issue, I think we need to hear from you to understand what those are. So, we encourage you to stay involved up on the project, come to these workshops, because we need to hear the specifics on that. So certainly open to hearing all of that, and we want to get that feedback. In terms of coordination with city agencies, DOT, DEP, I've been on the project for about 5+ years, and we started an advisory committee of city agencies very early so that we can partner with them. They can understand what we're doing, so they can kind of think about what they need to do for us and how our two agencies will have to work together. So we've had very good, productive conversations with the agencies you mentioned. This is very important to us. I know you mentioned, I think, extreme weather, storm events. The MTA has a great resiliency sustainability group that we're working with. The benefit of doing this project is that everything is new, so we can build it to the most modern standards we need to, rather than retrofitting an existing facility, which is what the MTA usually does for sustainability measures. And I think that kind of captures most of your comment.
Okay, so as we move to, thank you. And just to say, as we move to wrap up this portion of the agenda, just a couple of points. We heard a lot from folks at the MTA about going to the upcoming workshops. I also just want to say to anyone who's listening or listening later, if you want to send any comments about the presentation tonight so that we can reflect them and kind of understand them from the community board perspective, we'd really welcome that. And you can send the email to bk07@cb.nyc.gov. It's really helpful. So if you catch this presentation later, you have additional questions, comments. I know there were a lot of questions that were asked that we didn't get the level of detail because of the format tonight of going through. Maybe some folks asked several questions in one. And so can I confirm that if we send you a list of questions that you'll be able to provide a written response that we can then report back? Okay. just use the mic if you can.
Yeah, absolutely. Just please, any questions that you have on this presentation, we'll also leave some hard copies here. We'll have it online. Just please reach out to the board, and the board will give us your questions. We also had really good questions from an organization that we'll follow up with directly as well, to have a future meeting offline.
Okay, and so I would just ask again, we have a Community Board 7 meeting, full board meeting next Wednesday, the 15th. So just in the next week, if people can send anything that comes to them so that we can capture that and then send it over to MTA. So thank you. Thanks, everybody. And with that, transition to our next presentation. So let's see. I see Mira. Okay, wonderful. I think Mira, you're our presenter, right? If I can welcome up Mira Joshi, who's going to be talking about the Greenwood Cemetery item that's on the agenda around the Greenway. Mira, I don't feel like you need an introduction, but maybe you need an introduction. So if you want to do that. And also, I know you have several team members as well. So just once you grab. Oh, and they need time to set up. Okay, so do you want to, you need to present some slides, right? Okay. Yeah.
Hey, good. Good evening, everyone. My name is Mira Zoshi. I'm the president of Greenwood Cemetery. I started recently, just this past September. And I have to admit, after 20 some years with the city, this is my first time presenting in front of a community board. I have managed to escape this duty for 2 decades, but no more. So I also want to introduce my fellow colleagues that are joining me today: Arthur Rodriguez, Chief of Staff; Eric, who runs everything cemetery; and Angeles, who's in charge of our community relations. So if there's anything that I don't cover, you can always catch them as well. And we're close by, so that our doors are always open. So anything that I don't cover today, you can always swing by Greenwood, and be sure to swing by for the opening of our new greenhouse on April 18th and 19th. So what I'm going to present today is a proposal that we have put together and submitted for funding to the borough president from his discretionary funding, the capital pot. And we've also talked about it with several of the Brooklyn delegation, and they will discuss it at their meeting on budget. And what you'll see is a path forward to really, from Greenwood's perspective, enlarge the footprint of Greenwood and really make us more accessible to the community, and take advantage of what I call 1.5 miles of neglected, really vital land that connects sections of Brooklyn from McDonald Avenue down to 4th Avenue. It's very tiny on this screen. And if I could do this, I would, but it's not going to help you. But basically, if you think about 36th and 37th Street that abut the Jackie Gleason bus depot, I think MTA left, so I'm free to say this. Don't report back to them. Yeah, I know. It abuts the bus station, and there is the topography of that 1.5 miles is broken sidewalk. Barely can you call it a sidewalk, and 2 sides of parked cars. Because there's really not a lot of people on it, it is a popular site for illegal dumping. DSNY has worked with Greenwood a lot to put up additional cameras, but we're chasing a systemic problem that we'll never solve by constantly ticketing. There is a lot of illegal truck parking there. I've even seen circus equipment parked over there, a small Ferris wheel. And there's often RVs, which people that are, in unfortunate times have found this as a refuge, and they're living there. We do have services in the city that we'd prefer people to take advantage of than to live in an RV on 36th Street. So it represents one sort of a no man's land strip. It also represents for Greenwood a real opportunity to provide what we're able to provide on Fifth Avenue, what we're able to provide on 20th Street, what we're able to provide on Fort Hamilton, which is an entrance to Greenwood. It's a 1.5 mile strip, but Sunset Park, if they're to enter Greenwood, has to go around either to the top of Fort Hamilton or to the bottom to Fifth Avenue or further down to Fourth Avenue. And why does that matter? Like in the big scheme of things, is that a big walk? No, but we're a cemetery and people have a lot of aversion to coming into a cemetery to begin with, but we're a huge asset for the community. We're 478 acres of exquisitely landscaped green space. We've got birds more than anyone can name, more trees than anyone can name, and we have a host of public programming and cultural events that most of them are free. Again, I apologize. These are small slides. We will leave something behind so people can see. And the reason I raise all that is that there is a conundrum that beautiful cemeteries have, which is many people are reluctant to walk into them because they remind them of loss. With the Sunset Park community, I think we have had an even harder time engaging to get people to regularly come and take advantage of Greenwood. So in addition to our grand plan of widening the sidewalk, creating a real bike lane that works both ways, in both directions, providing planters that we can take care of because we have a horticultural crew, we want to open up another gate here for pedestrians on the Sunset Park side. So it would really allow people to not just walk or ride down here, but an invitation to linger, and even further, an invitation to just come inside Greenwood and enjoy it. So that's sort of the basic proposal. There's nothing not to like here. And there are lots of logistics, but I have learned over the years that if we don't start out with the big idea and stay focused on the promise of it, and we worry about the logistics first, we tend to then get mired in those and we never get the big idea across. So those are many of the logistics that we Greenwood are willing to take on, of exactly how do we open up the fence? How do you widen the sidewalk? And we're willing to take the lead on working with the city agencies on how to execute all those and how to support all of those. And what we're really here today is to sort of gauge your support for this project. And then, like any good project that requires city dollars, see if we can engage you to voice that support with the Brooklyn delegation and the borough president. And I know that the last presentation was quite long, so I'm going to stop there and really open it up to questions.
Thank you so much. And so just to be clear, your wish would be that at some point Community Board 7 would pass a resolution or provide a letter of support. Are you looking for that soon for any reason? Like, what are the timelines that you guys are working with?
So the timeline is the budget season. The Brooklyn delegation is meeting within the next week or so. And a resolution would be perfect, but something short of that, which if you could do that in a quicker time frame, if I can at least convey to them that there's a sense of support from Community Board 7 and a resolution follows, I think that would go a long way as well.
Okay, good to know what you guys are looking for in this. Okay, I'll just ask my first question, which is it's a question and it's a comment, but and I feel like you know this very well. The plastic bollards don't work to protect people.
Yes.
And I would say this community board has voted on resolutions to say that we want daylighting at every intersection. We haven't passed a resolution saying that we no longer support plastic bollards, but we have submitted so many letters saying we want hardened infrastructure. So I saw this and thought, no, that's not safe. And plastic bollards as the thing that separates any of these cyclists from the MTA buses or those trucks that are illegally parking that are still going to try and do it, that are going to still park on it. So I just want to say from a design perspective, seeing this first image was problematic. And I just wanted to get your reaction to
Sure.
that.
It's a rendering that we put together quickly in support of the proposal. What you see on 20th Street is the Jersey barriers. They're not beautiful, but they're highly effective.
We've gotten a ton of feedback about 20th Street not working well. So I think where I'm going to go with this is that what you're going to probably hear from a lot of people is what design solutions are most effective to keep people safe and protected from cars. And that's something I think we're like this community board takes very seriously. So unfortunately, 20th Street is not a good example because of the kind of work and feedback that we're still trying to do and fix that issue.
So it would be good for us to hear the kind of feedback you're getting.
Yeah.
From the DOT perspective, the Jersey barriers are sort of their go-to, as you know, for protected bike lanes. The next best thing is actually cars. If there's a line of parked cars there, that's not a great design, but very helpful. But since we want to make this aesthetically pleasing as well as functional, I'm more than happy to look into what else we can do from a design perspective to keep it open, but provide that protection.
Yeah, and I'm not going to propose that I know all the recommendations and the tools right now, but the new greenway that's opening from Hamilton down to 27th is I'm not saying this is the solution. I'm just saying, right, there's also the one that's level with the sidewalk, right, that provides, so there's lots of things, but I just think having plastic bollards is something that this community board has pushed back
And I think
against.
on Hamilton, that little turn, that leveling might actually be the solution because it's an awkward spot.
Yeah, to think about that one. Okay. So I got my questions on design. So I think what you're saying is the design was just a rendering, but this would be a discussion about what the best design option.
Yeah, what we're asking for the borough president and the Brooklyn delegation funding is 3.3 million to do design, which includes one section of it is community outreach to compile that design and then go forth with actual renderings that mirror what we're hearing from the community.
Thank you. Thanks for clarifying. Okay, John, and then any board members in the room, and then we'll go virtual, and then we'll come back to the room for community members. Thanks.
Just building on what Katie said, one thing, since you mentioned the DOT seems to have Jersey barriers as their go-to, I've noticed there's different qualities of Jersey barriers out there, right? Like the standard ones tend to get graffitied and they look terrible, but I've seen other ones where there's like art on them. I would urge you to consider if that ends up being an approach you're working on to explore that. I also want to build on what Katie said about the Hamilton Avenue section. I noticed they've have little plants as well to try to separate the different uses. I would urge you to consider that, especially because some years ago, DOT promised a bike lane separated by trees down between First and Second Avenue. That never came to pass, but it looks so beautiful in the pictures. And I know Greenwood has been doing a lot of work with their tree mapping projects and all those activities. If we could have a more beautiful greenway separated by trees, maybe explore that. Next, I would say that mentioning that the daylighting concern, is there a plan to have robust crosswalks? Because sometimes in our district, when bike lanes have come in, crosswalks have gone away. And I want to make sure that since you talked about your goal of making the cemetery more accessible to people, that it's accessible to all modes, not just people on bicycles.
Yeah, the crosswalk, I mean, obviously go into any Manhattan street corner and you're going to see that there's crosswalk nightmares with e-bikes and so many different things moving. So the same thing, conflict potential is here, especially if we open up a new pedestrian entrance. So the design element is going to have to include whether it's rumble strips or zebras or elements that slow the bikes down, and then all the visual cues for stopping, so that you have a real intersection and you have a real point where they have to stop before the people cross over on probably 9th Avenue. So we're very aware of that. DOT is very aware of that. And ultimately we would be loud advocates for all of those interventions, especially because we think that this might be an entrance that would be frequented by school children So it's a more vulnerable population that we want to ensure has all the protections of a safe crosswalk.
Just to clarify on that, you're not planning on closing any existing crosswalks or areas where people cross right now, or is that?
I don't believe that that's necessary. You know, all of these things are fights with DOT, right? Or not, like they may agree as well. But I think it's important early on to have the community board's feedback that influences those discussions.
Thank you.
So, go to board members. I just want to ask, will you need to come to, or do you know this? Will Greenwood need to come to get egress, like support from us to be able to build out your new entrance? Is that going to be something that you're going to end up coming back to us for?
I doubt it because, yeah, it's the first time we're ever doing it, but I mean, we're in many ways responsible for the sidewalk, right? Yeah, the abutting sidewalk, and our entrance would be sort of inward, but we'll find out. I mean,
Okay.
if we have to, we will, of course.
Okay, because yeah, I think Greenwood came to Community Board 7 a couple of years ago, where we had to vote on, do you want to jump it? Yeah.
So it was a revocable consent to run some kind of cables, I think, under the ground, and you had to, visitor center, yeah.
But you'll follow up with us. I think
Okay,
that sounds
yeah.
good. It's just good to know what else that this might trigger CB7's need to be involved in. Okay, I'll just go to the room, board members, virtually board members, and then back in the room for the public. I'm gonna do this, and Dan Kaminsky, you haven't asked a question yet, and then I'll go to Faye, and then Jerry and Maria, and I don't know where the mic is. Oh, Dan has it. Go for it, Dan.
Easy start. So I have a question for us and a question for you all. The question for us is, considering the timeline you said of a week, do we want to have a resolution today that we pass through committee to support this? Not in terms of the details, just like the generic idea of turning this into a bike lane and kind of the broad strokes here, considering the board meeting is next week. So is that something we want to do for this meeting? I don't know. if that's-
You could
a motion?
introduce a
Okay.
motion, but
Happy to do so.
I think right now we're still sort of in collecting information mode, but that's a thing someone
Cool.
could do. Yeah.
Happy to do when it comes back. And then my question for you, just so I have a sense of how easy it would be for us to get through this motion through the full board. My recollection of that street, there isn't parking on it, maybe closer to Fort Hamilton there is that right? So would this bike lane be taking away?
It would take away a lane of parking that's primarily, it's the lane that is closest to the cemetery. And a lot of that parking, and this is going to be a point of friction probably with the MTA, is people that work in the MTA bus depot do park their cars over there. But there's also illegal truck parking, dumping, and other types of
Totally.
parking. It is a different animal than taking away parking on a fully residential strip.
So not the illegal truck parking, but the residential parking? Do you have a sense of how, it's not the full strip, right? It's just,
On Fort Hamilton?
no.
And there's parking the whole,
Oh, it is the full strip.
Yeah.
there's a piece that's adjacent to Jackie Gleason that doesn't have between 5th and
Bike sharing, yeah.
7th. It doesn't have parking on the side that you guys are talking about. There's just one piece that
But
doesn't.
most of it has
Most of it has
on
parking.
the side of the cemetery. Yes.
I'm fully in favor. I
Okay.
yay for that, but just so I know
Yeah,
kind
no,
of the
it'll be a
political
ripping
headwinds
of the
internally.
Band-Aid.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay, Faye, and then, okay, Joan's jumping in, Joan and then Faye, and then we'll go back this way.
Did you mention that bike lanes on Fort Hamilton Park, on McDonald Avenue?
No, I didn't. We're talking about 36th and 37th.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you.
Oh, could you just walk us through your immediate next steps and kind of the hoops that you're jumping through and your understanding of the process from here so that we can also think about tactically at what points we can support other than in the next week?
Sure. So the most immediate hurdles are getting the support of the Brooklyn delegation and the borough president. And that's the tangible way they support is putting in $3.3 million to do the community outreach and design work that's necessary. Those decisions are tied up with like the city's budget process. So that's all started now and it's heated up. I don't have the exact dates of the Brooklyn delegation meeting when they're making decisions about capital, but my understanding from speaking to Councilmember Joseph's, Osei, and Hanif is that it is within the next week and a half. What I can do is try to see if I can get a specific date, but it's coming up. The borough president's decisions are happening around the same kind of timeline. So I'd say there is a advocacy push that needs to happen within the next 2 weeks, and then a continuous push if the money is put in the budget to get the project started. Because it's one thing to have it in the budget, it's another thing to have it actually start. And so that's somewhere where I think, you know, the community board could be immensely helpful, because unless there's a sense of urgency, and it's not a project that came from an agency, it might get backburnered.
Is there a timeline when the funds have to be used by?
Not really. There probably is kind of on the books, but design funds, you know, we would want to see them used, like if they're put in the 2027 budget, that they're used within that year. Ideally, we'd like to have a little bit more control and see if the city would let us do contract out for some of the design and community engagement instead of the city agency, because I believe that we could probably do that process faster. But it's going to be up to the administration.
You all remember well, money was set aside for the design for the street improvement plan along Third Avenue as well as construction, but then that was delayed because of intervention. So I think we know this really well in terms of having that money set aside. We're still waiting for the Third Avenue street improvement plan to happen under this administration. Jerry, and then Jamie and Maria, and then we'll go virtually.
So I'm looking at the total estimate is 15 million. Right, that's a lot of money with what the city's going through right now. Oh, well, okay, sorry. I'm a very quiet guy. So and I hear you that you want to open up is a great idea, right? But Asian is very taboo to go to cemetery unless this time of the month, right? I don't know. I mean, I support opening, right? But I don't support spending the money, especially that much right now, to do all those design, which is $2.4 million, right? That's a lot of money. So how could you convince me, right, to go to our local official, hey, let's support this, right? Because we need to spend $2.4 million to do this.
Well, sadly, the cost of all construction is just very high now, right? But the good part about construction is if this is capital dollars, it's dollars that are in some sense cheaper for the city to spend than expense dollars. And this isn't money that's all spent in 1 year. It's money that's spent over a period of time. The thing that's also very important is under the Streets Masters Plan, DOT has an obligation to get a certain amount of miles of bike lane out and get a certain amount of greenways out. And so they're going to have to do this work anyway. So whether it's this community or another community, that money is going to get spent.
Greenwood Cemetery put out any money for this?
So what we are willing to do is, one, shepherd it, which takes a lot of nagging, and that's not a small responsibility. And two, we are willing to help with the design placement of all of the planting and maintain. Now, maintenance is the thing people forget about a greenway. You know, build a beautiful greenway and nobody's maintaining it, it's not going to be used. But we will maintain all of the plantings. We will use our horticultural staff to do that. And that is a direct gift on behalf of Greenwood.
So Greenwood, yes, Greenwood
Yes,
will
in
put our
flood
money.
equity, yes.
So this means the grave will be more expensive now because you got another
Not true, not true.
48,000 by a plot over there.
Jerry, if you could pass it to Jamie. Yeah.
But there are many options for how you can be remembered in Greenwood. So buying a burial plot is only one of them.
All right. I'm thrilled that you're coming here and presenting this. I've been saying for years that we need a bike lane that circumnavigates Greenwood Cemetery. Sunset Park and Windsor Terrace in the same community board are like so hard to get between by bike, and this would solve that problem immediately. I imagine you've thought of this, but it'll be probably a hugely popular destination for like recreational fitness types. It'll be a great running route and perhaps biking laps route. Do you have anything in mind to like separate the strolling pedestrians from the runners, from the transport cyclists, from the exercise cyclists?
I think that's one of the design opportunities. The sidewalk now is very narrow. It should be much, much wider, and there has to be a creative delineator between the two. Because I think actually one of the problems, I don't know if you hear this, I observed this on the 20th Street, is it's so wide, it has attracted a lot of walkers and strollers, but there's no real delineation between the two. I think this has to be purposely designed with that in mind.
Here are all the kinds of inputs that you would like to collect, especially when you're doing the community
Yes.
process. Okay, so just as we're thinking about those types of things, we might want to move to a resolution after we capture Maria's question.
What a great idea.
I was
you know,
unsure as you were shaking your head what direction
No,
you
I
were going.
do, and I've been told. But I thought you were going to say no. Yeah, you play with people. Yeah. You get it. Anyway, I've lived in this community since 1964, and oh my God. Okay. And so many decades and decades and decades, and always wondered, why is this not open here? Not I, obviously many people. So seeing these ideas of opening it up to pedestrian, to runners, to bikes, I'm glad I'm still alive. And I hope I see the finished product. This came up in the previous presentation. As far as the outreach to the community is concerned, so people voice or write or whatever, the keeping in mind the multilingual, okay, the English, the Spanish, the Chinese, and the Arabic. We have a large and growing Arabic community, not only to the surrounding community on two sides, but also for the visitors. A lot of people who are born in New York still don't know Greenwood Cemetery is sitting there.
know.
And how could you not? But it is. The other thing that I want to say, I have many things to say, but I'll keep it to one more. We have a very rich artistic community, indigenous to this. And as well as bringing in the schools, the artists in our schools, in our high schools, in our middle schools. Those children, the children bring home, educate the home. Any parent will tell you that. Once a teacher gets into their brain, the teacher knows everything, and then they come home. Did you know that the cemetery, and then we are going to go, or Mom, we got to go, or Dad, we're going to go because it's beautiful. And it's hard sometimes, many times, to say no to your child. So maybe reluctantly, you're going to be pulled in as a parent. If anyone can do it, it's the children. So getting the schools involved, then we'll reach the children, and the children will reach the adults to not only support it, but also come into the cemetery and be a part of that. So I will, there was one more thing, but maybe on the second round, I just had a senior moment. So
Okay, and so with that, I actually want to pass to Natasha just to read the questions out on that we got online. Just I'm recognizing time.
Okay, so one of the questions from the chat is, does Greenwood have the security resources to support another entrance? Vandalism has been a perpetual problem through the years as it is.
And then could you just ask the second question, and then we'll.
And the second question is, will this design diminish the roadway that affects bus and truck traffic to the depot?
So to the first question, yes, we will add additional security as we do with every entrance. That's part of our obligation and responsibility running the cemeteries to make sure it's protected. And I think that will provide an additional benefit for this boulevard. And then the second is when the design is done, this contemplates taking away some parking. So the design will factor in that you need width for those buses to keep turning. Today, they turn with that parking. If you're really substituting the space with another use, then in theory, that should carry through, that they still have the width to turn, as well as emergency vehicles to get through. And both of those will be constraints to the design. They're going to have to allow for emergency vehicles and buses turning.
Okay, great. Did you want to ask a final question? Okay.
Just wanted to follow up. You mentioned about the loss of parking in the area. Do you have a number for how many spots will go in order to support this?
I don't offhand. I could make one and send it to you, but I think, we're talking, definitely more than a dozen, closer to 20 at least.
Okay, so this point, we're just moving to the board members who are committee members. Dan, did you want to?
Yeah, I make a motion to put forth a resolution supporting Greenwood Initiative, Greenway Initiative. Yeah.
Seconded. Okay, does anyone have any, is there a discussion on this resolution? And again, there could also be friendly amendments that get added to, or not friendly amendments that get added to that resolution. John?
I'll add, I don't know if it needs to be an amendment or if this can be part of our resolution, but I think we need to mention the importance of the outreach process. And I think we also need to mention that the bollards cannot be the plastic ones. So that's what I would say needs to be included in, if we're doing this resolution as a letter of support, or if we're doing it as a statement for that we pass next week. I think those need to be included. So I'm not sure if that needs to be an amendment, but as we discuss this, we can hash that out.
Okay, so Dan, would you consider a proposal to support what the Greenwood is doing on the Greenway presentation, including the need for outreach and engagement, design improvements that we want to see, like plastic bollards?
Yeah, I think that can totally be part of the resolution we do.
Okay, anything else anyone want to add to it? We heard a lot of comments tonight about engaging schools, like what outreach could look like, but is there anything else? No plastic bollards. Okay, we'll make that really clear. Okay, so that's in discussion. Is there anyone from the board? Virtually, is that someone who chimed in?
Yeah, Pat, hi.
Hi, Pat. Yes. So
Hi, how are you? Thank you for
Dan
the-
accepted that resolution. So yeah, go ahead.
And I just had a question. Are they looking for more of a letter of support?
Yes, so when it started, they are looking for a letter of support. It can be as specific or not specific as we want it to be. For their request on the 3.3 million for the capital allocation, as they started at the top of the meeting, Mira said ideally Community Board 7 would signal something about exploring, being supportive of them exploring it.
Okay.
I think the specific is support for our funding request.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, and I think I like the inclusion because it helps push forward, I think, aspects that we would want to see, which is community outreach being robust and looking at this as a design and arts opportunity.
So what is your request? Would you prefer a letter of support?
So Pat, that's when we had started this part of the agenda. That was the ask for a letter of support. So what's on the floor right now is in response to that after all the questions and the comments that were made. And so the resolution on the floor is to write a letter supporting Greenwood's request to start exploring this design process, exploring their funding request. And we're noting that we're including things like the importance of outreach and engagement and certain design elements like the plastic bollards. That's what we're talking about right now.
Thank you for clarification.
Okay. All right. There's an agenda, there's a resolution on the floor. We're in the discussion section, and then we have to vote on it. Jerry. Yeah, or modification, yep.
That I'm thinking because a lot of parking space will be gone, that Greenwood Cemetery need to do an outreach and get the feedback from the people that actually live in that community that is going to lose that parking spot, right, before we pass it. Because again, I'm thinking ahead that you're gonna lose a lot of space. You didn't even come prepared. Tell me how many space we are losing, right, in the neighborhood. And you know this neighborhood, parking is very essential. We push back a lot of project um, because losing parking space.
There's still parking on the other side, and it's generally not all filled. So it's not, it is not a completely full parking. It's not like Park Slope where there's no parking. There's still space. So I don't know. It is utilized, certainly, but it is not as highly utilized for parking as some other neighborhoods.
So this is a little out of order, folks. So right now, this is just the committee discussion,
Okay.
and we're just talking directly between. So, but this has to be up to Dan if that's a friendly amendment, if we want to be that specific. And then it's making me think of something else, but
So Jerry, my understanding of what you're asking is outreach specific to people who park there. Firstly, I don't know, just logistically speaking, how that would happen because different people are parking there on a different basis. So how would you target the car owners who are parking there on any given day? And the other thing is, I think broadly speaking, obviously parking is going to be a flashpoint. I have lots of thoughts and feelings about it. I'm sure you do too. I'm sure many people in the room do. And I think that's going to be a crux of the discussion here. I think just broadly speaking, outreach and emphasizing we really support their doing an outreach process, which everyone can bring their views, including car owners and cyclists and everyone else. And that fits within that. So I'm gonna not hostily, friendly say no and just keep it within the outreach, like the outreach broader term.
I'll make another amendment. Okay. Okay, I'm fine with that outreach, right? Let them go out, do the outreach first, and come back to us before we move on and vote and support anything.
okay, right. So we can make it clear that we're just supporting this initial funding ask for the design, but not saying, we're not saying right now that we're voting on the design itself. We'll make that really clear. I will add something. I think we should make a note about engagement to the MTA and the Jackie Gleason Depot and figuring out how that coordination will work. I know you guys are doing that, but let's just include that in our letter too. Okay, if we can move to, there might be other things that people think of in the weeds, but I think we've captured outreach, noting the MTA and design. And then, is he okay with that? And then we can vote. So I would propose that we do a roll call vote for this one, if that's okay. Sorry to ask you to do that, Natasha. So this is in support, if you support the resolution, what's the specific language?
Order a resolution to write a letter of support to support Greenwood Cemetery's funding request, and that we would note the importance of outreach and engagement, as well as design considerations like no plastic bollards. Clarifying that engagement thing, did we make that more? You said including the MTA or not including the MTA?
Jackie
So
Gleason, and that's it.
yes. Okay.
That's what you're voting on. So a yes is a yes of support.
Okay, Katie Walsh?
Yes.
John DeLuper?
Yes.
Joan Body? George Cardona? Jerry Chan? Danny DeBear? Gabino Morales? Matthew Florkowitz? Thank you. Jamie Freed? Thank you. Daniel Kaminsky? Thank you. Roberto A. Martinez? Thank you. Maria Roca? Thank you. Sam Sierra? Faye Walker? Thank you. Yeah, Unanimous.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you so much. So we will, we passed this in the Transportation Committee unanimously. We'll bring it to the full board meeting next week on the 15th. And then our goal would be to share a letter with you right after that, once we bring it to the full board. But
Thank you very much. And if you need us for any further presentations, just let us know.
thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, with that, we have one last agenda item. And that is just to kind of give a update and talk about next steps. So, thank you to the Greenwood team. There are several people I see leaving. Thank you guys for coming. So we've talked about this several times, but just a quick reminder, refresher, if anyone is new in the room, the portion of the Greenway between Hamilton Avenue and, I always screw this up, 29th Street. Hamilton Avenue and 29th Street on 3rd Avenue, that portion of the Greenway is completed. We actually just got an email from from DDC, Department of Design and Construction, saying from their perspective, it's done. They're looking for input and feedback on things that could be improved with what is completed. We just got this message, they've given us 2 weeks to give them feedback, April 20th. So the first part of this message is if you walk, bike, drive by, just if you make yourself known between Hamilton Avenue and 29th Street on 3rd Avenue, please send any feedback, insights, anything you're seeing from that portion of the Greenway between now and next week at the board meeting, April 15th, knowing that we have to give feedback to DOT. So that'd be the first part. The second thing is, if possible, I will try to organize some sort of walk through again, at least for myself, and I will tell our Transportation Community Board 7 members if you want to join me, so that I can be down on site so I can get some additional feedback. So that's again between now and next week, April 15th, for that feedback. So the timing works out. We've been talking about doing some sort of event, and we had hosted a meeting with community partners and electeds to talk about what this could look like, an event related to the Greenway finishing, as well as the need for the 3rd Avenue Street Improvement Plan to be done. We had a meeting, we talked about it, we sort of identified a scope. We shared that scope back in this meeting the last time. Then we sent out a doodle poll to community organizations and electeds to figure out when we could do that event. And the most popular came back as Monday, May 4th at noon. Monday, May 4th at noon. I know that timing is very tough for folks also, kind of depending on where you are at that time of day. But so what this means is we will move ahead with Monday, May 4th at 12 noon for a Greenway 3rd Avenue Street Improvement Plan called event. The thing that we sort of convened around was being able to have people meet at Hamilton Avenue and then move, I'll just say move because it might be walking, fast, slow, it might be biking, it might just be, yeah, however you choose. And then to make your way down to that, we have to figure out the specific corner on 3rd Avenue, but then actually kind of host like an event, some sort of celebratory / call to action to finish 3rd Avenue. So we are a month away exactly from that event. I am particularly interested if there's anybody who's in the room, whether you're a community board member or not, if you're joining virtually. This will take many hands. Community Board 7 is helping to convene this, and we are inviting and partnering with community organizations and our electeds, but it's going to take a couple folks to kind of pull this thing off. So I'm looking at Jamie because he had already expressed some interest, but if there's anyone else who's here, I'm maybe just as this meeting wraps up or after the fact, if you want to send a note to Community Board 7 to let us know, and that then we will kind of offline start talking about what's needed for May 4th. And I invite everyone who's here to come, and we'll have an advisory and things that go out. So with that, we can adjourn. Thank you. No, because it might move. Thank you.